A recent leak has suggested we might end up seeing Zen 4 launch earlier than expected. Along with that, a benchmark result was posted which involves the upcoming Ryzen 5 7600X showcasing some huge gains over the competition. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. At Computex 2022, AMD talked about their upcoming Zen 4 architecture and also briefly talked about the upcoming Ryzen 7000 series CPUs for the desktop. One of the things that was said at the press conference alluded to a release date sometime during the fall of this year. This then allowed us to get a rough idea on when they'll possibly have these CPUs hit store shelves. If you recall, in 2020, AMD had officially launched Zen 3 during a live stream on the 8th of October, with the CPUs hitting store shelves a month later on November 5th, 2020. So a lot of folks, myself included, thought that perhaps AMD will follow a similar timeline, officially launching Zen 4 in October and have a release date later that month or early November. Though a recent post from Tech PowerUp suggests that we might end up seeing these Ryzen 7000 processors officially launch even earlier than that. The explorer.amd.com website posted a webpage which is a registration page for an upcoming event called AMD Meet the Experts. Based on the summary, it'll basically be an event for partners such as ASUS, MSI, and Gigabyte to show off their all-new upcoming X670 motherboards, and along with that, showcase some new DDR5 memory and PCIe 5.0 SSDs. These motherboards will of course be launched alongside the 7000 series CPUs, and the reason why these partners want to generate so much hype is because this is a brand new platform. Socket AM5 is new with Zen 4, and AMD are moving away from AM4, as it's time for a new socket with new platform features. Now what's interesting to note is that in the summary, it clearly states that supporting the recent announcement of AMD Ryzen 7000 series processors. The new AMD AM5 chipset offers users high power performance across gaming, creating, and intensive computing tasks. The word recent is used, which makes it seem like this event is going to take place after another event which will be hosted by AMD to officially launch the new Ryzen 7000 series CPUs. Now, I personally don't think this is the case. I think the wording is a bit confusing for sure, but what I think they're referring to is the announcement AMD had already made during Computex 2022. This event will supposedly be happening on the 4th of August at 12 PM EST. And if an event like that was supposed to happen, I think we might have heard something by now or had seen some leaked slides of official marketing material from AMD. If you guys recall all the way back to 2017, when AMD was getting ready to release Ryzen 1000, motherboard manufacturers had already showcased their motherboards prior to release because they wanted to generate a lot of hype for this new platform. Like I said, since AM5 is all new and supports new features that haven't been seen before on an AMD platform, I take it they want some more time to highlight this. However, what we can take away from this is the fact that if motherboard manufacturers are already willing to showcase their boards in the next few days, then a launch from AMD shouldn't be too far. It'd be kind of weird for them to showcase all these cool new motherboards and then have the CPUs launch like 3 months later. I also have a feeling AMD might want to get an early step on Intel, as the latter is also planning on releasing their 13th gen Raptor Lake CPUs, which we know are going to be bringing more performance improvements. Moving on, and we have a leak that is directly from AMD. This leak was posted by Video Cards on their website, and it pertains to the SKUs or the models that AMD will initially release for the Ryzen 7000 lineup. Those SKUs being the Ryzen 9 7950X, the Ryzen 9 7900X, Ryzen 7 7700X, and Ryzen 5 7600. There wasn't really anything included there that would suggest what the pricing would be, specs, and release date. It's a lineup that nearly resembles the lineup we got for the Ryzen 5000 series release. However, this time it looks like instead of a Ryzen 7 7800X, we're instead going to be getting a Ryzen 7 7700X, which is interesting, but probably for the best. I'm sure you guys probably remember this, that when the 5800X came out, it really didn't have a good reception at launch. It was priced too closely to the 5900X, and it was about $150 more expensive than a Ryzen 5 5600. So the general consensus was that if all you're doing is just gaming, get the 5600X, and if you want something with more cores, skip the 5800X and get the 5900X, which gives you much better value for the money. It wasn't until retailers started discounting the CPU significantly by like $50 or $100 where the 5800X started getting a lot more attraction and appeared more value friendly to consumers. So what I think might be happening is that due to the fact that we're now getting a 7700X instead of a 7800X, we might be seeing lower pricing for the SKUs, if not lower pricing for the 7600X and 7700X. The X700X CPUs from the various Ryzen generation families we've had, all those CPUs, I'm talking about 1700X, 3700X, 5700X, have traditionally always been positioned as a good value 8-core processor. It'd be weird to see a 7700X all of a sudden have significantly higher launch pricing when compared to its predecessors. The same could be said for the 5600X, although since it was the cheapest SKU, most people ignored it, and everyone was just desperate back then, and the lack of competition also made it a bit acceptable. This goes back to the looming threat of Raptor Lake. Unlike the uncontested position the 5000 series got to enjoy at the beginning, AMD has competition from Raptor Lake they're worried about this time around. They can't get too greedy with their pricing, otherwise, as I discussed in a previous video, people will jump ship to Intel, as they're actually competing pretty well on pricing these days, and also support DDR4 unlike AMD, which means lower platform costs. I think that AMD should price the 7600X at $249 and the 7700X at $359. Anything higher than that, and it's going to be a tough sell. I mean, one of the biggest advantages Intel will have over AMD is the difference in core counts. With Intel, you not only get high performance cores, but you also get extra smaller E-cores, which enable their processors to have better multi-threading performance. With Raptor Lake, Intel will be increasing the amount of included E-cores with those K SKUs. So what we're going to see is a 6-core 7600X versus a 14-core 13600K, and while I'm not expecting one or the other to have a huge advantage in gaming, where the 7600X is going to be thrashed on is multi-threaded performance. You can go right now and take a look at benchmarks and see the i5 12600K outperforming an 8-core Ryzen 7 5800X when it comes to multi-core performance, and that CPU actually costs less than the latter. A lot of AMD fanboys downplay the addition of E-cores, but I remember when Ryzen came out, those same arguments were used against Intel, so which is it? One thing that I have said ever since Alder Lake was released was that AMD should consider shifting their entire lineup down a tier and pricing should be adjusted accordingly. If you were to ask me how they should construct the lineup, they should have a Ryzen 3 7300X with 6 cores for $150, the Ryzen 5 7600X should have 8 cores for $250, the Ryzen 7 7700X should have 12 cores for $350, and finally the Ryzen 9 7900X with 16 cores for $450 or $499 for the flagship, to make up for the core count deficit, because I don't know if the improvements when it comes to single core performance will be enough for them to close the gap in multi-core performance as well. I just don't think it's going to happen. Though speaking of performance, Tom Apisak, who's a really well-known data miner on benchmarking sites, posted a link to what is allegedly a Ryzen 5 7600X engineering sample from the user benchmark website. Now the name of the CPU and the result just has a generic Eng sample branding, but it has 6 cores with a base clock of 4.4 GHz and a boost of 4.95 GHz. Before we talk about the result, I just want to say that User Benchmark is a straight up garbage website, and nobody should actually be using the site as a means to compare products and base their purchasing decision based on those results. User Benchmark have made it blatantly clear at this point that they absolutely hate AMD, and their attitude towards them really makes you question just how flawed their scoring is. I'm only talking about it right now because supposedly someone is testing an upcoming or unreleased CPU and they decided to use their site, but other than that, I highly recommend staying away from this site. Regardless, we can see that despite all their qualms for AMD, the alleged Ryzen 5 7600X is scoring quite well in their single-threaded test. Harukaze on Twitter managed to put the results in a graph and included other current-gen CPUs like the 12900K, 12600K, and the 5600X. In this graph, we can see that the 7600X attains a single-core score of 243 points, which when compared to the 5600X is 56% faster, which is a huge leap for a single generation. And when compared to the 12900K, which is currently Intel's fastest, it's 22% faster. So that's definitely not a bad result, but again, this is just a synthetic result. I highly doubt you'll see that kind of performance gain in a real-world scenario like gaming. Now, when it comes to multi-core performance, the 7600X is 23% faster than the 5600X, but the 12600K, which will be its direct competitor until Intel launches the Raptor Lake platform, is still 27% faster, and that's thanks to those extra E-cores it has. And as I just said in my last point, that even if AMD makes a huge leap in regards to single core performance, it probably won't be enough to make up for the lack of cores against Intel's upcoming Raptor Lake CPUs. I know people will downplay it by saying, who cares? It's not like those extra E-cores are helpful in gaming, but it's not about that. As a consumer, you're going to want to look at what's giving you better value for the money. For example, if both the Ryzen 7 7600X and i5 13600K are around the same price and are trading close in gaming, but Intel is offering more cores and supports DDR4, then it's obvious that, a lot of people are going to go with Intel. But if the Ryzen 5 7600X was an 8-core, then that changes everything, but obviously that's probably not going to happen. Nonetheless, this is why I'm happy we have a market that has healthy competition. If one company disappoints, then you have another option to go with. The question this time around for AMD and Zen 4 isn't going to be how much faster are you guys over Zen 3 like it was last time, but now the focus is on if Zen 4 is going to be competitive against Raptor Lake and could it offer better value. If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.